Something wonderful is happening. Something wonderful is happening. Yeah. So that's the title of the message here. And today I'm going to share with you a personal story about a friend of mine who's living in some answered prayer. And it's for all of us, you know, his happy answered prayer is an opportunity for each one of us to go a little bit deeper into how do we engage and how do we feel empowered and how do we feel connected to this idea of claiming our wholeness. And I am really excited to share this story, not just because of the story, but because of what the story does to us. And so claiming wholeness is the theme that we are in our spiritual hero's journey. And I always think it's important. So just for the folks that are new, my name is Reverend Karen Russo, and I am like a mentor minister to the New Vision Center. I'm a member here. Yeah. And I speak about once a quarter when our senior ministers, Reverend Karen Lewis and Reverend Leslie Goodwin, are off doing the things that they're doing, so they are celebrating. And we are a Karen-rich environment here, just in case you, it's very true. And what's exciting about tuning into this part of our yearly theme, the claiming wholeness, is that we have this beautiful tapestry that's been set. So Reverend Karen Lewis started out, I think it was the beginning of the month of May, asking us to celebrate what's right, to shift our perception, to see the world and to see what's right. And then Reverend Leslie did a beautiful invitation for us to see ourselves as right, as unflawed, and to acknowledge ourselves as part of the wholeness. And so I want to go deeper into that word claim. Claim it feels to me like a verb. You know, it has an action component to it. We're going to claim. And I know that when I came to the science of mind, I was fairly newly sober. I was on a spiritual path, I guess, officially. This was, 25 years ago or so. But I was also what could charitably be called a hot mess. So challenges up the wazoo. I did not have a boyfriend. I would casually mention that to the dry cleaner, to everybody. It's like, you can tell I don't have a boyfriend. Something might be wrong with me. That was kind of one track. And then I also had just lots of different internal emotional upsets and challenges and anger and I also had some questions. And so my prayers at that time were versions of help. Have you all had that prayer, right? Help. And then my big spiritual questions were why? Why is it this way? Why do people suffer? Why is there pain? Why do I want what I want but it can't get, why? And there's nothing wrong with the prayer of help and the question of why. But what it had me in a stance of is I need something that I don't have, and I'm coming here to see if this is a place I can get it. There's nothing wrong with that. Is it just me? That's like Reverend Leslie. No, we have all had some moment of that. And one of the things I found as I came to the Science of Mind teaching founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes is a call for both being present to what is in my life, but also to recognizing that there is something greater, and it is my life and all life. And one of the things that, like many folks here, is I started to study, and I wanted to connect with people, so I was of service, which is a great way to meet people and connect. And I started working in the children's church at the center, and I met a couple named Paul and Liz Racy, and they had just had a little baby girl, Britta, and so I took care of her in the nursery. And then we all decided to take the first Science of Mind class. Back then it was called Foundations. Now it's called Beyond Limits. And you know how, the first people you take your first class with, you're like, you are my people. So Paul, here they are right there, like, you are my people. And it was a way for us we bonded, and then a couple of other folks came and joined our group, Jennifer and Janice, and we were called into practitioner training together. And that's, practitioners are licensed spiritual counselors here in our teaching. And one of the things we read in practitioner training was this book that Karen read from this morning, Joel Goldsmith, who was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes, 20th century philosopher, founder of The Infinite Way. Joel Goldsmith had this to say, and we're going to get this quote from Practicing the Presence. Goldsmith says, "Nothing is more important than this point. Are we seeking a realization of God, or are we trying to reach God in order to get something from God? Nothing is more important than this point. Are we trying to get something from God, or are we seeking a realization of God?" And that to me was like, oh my gosh, I totally have been trying to get something. And that's my question for us. As we claim wholeness, are we trying to escape or cope or fix or get something? And this isn't that it's wrong, but just notice, if I'm in pain and I want to escape it, what tends to happen is it means that I'm feeling like my pain has me separate from the divine. If I'm trying to cope with something, it means that I'm trying to get away or relieve some tension. And if I'm trying to fix, it means there's a problem. And if I'm trying to heal or get something or manifest something, it means I don't have it. So one of the things on my journey was to really look at this, look at the ways that my claiming wholeness was a substitute for just dealing with emotional discomfort or having the maturity to have to change my own behavior when I needed to, or to have a deeper walk with the divine, a real understanding and a living of the idea that if there is only one life, then the things I desire are not outside of me. You know, they are within and in. And so with my merry band of my peoples, just like you all are in spiritual circles, you have your pod of people, you know, I wore them out, asking them to pray for a boyfriend and for my peace of mind and all of this. And the thing is, they were good. They were good at their prayers. And so one of the things that happened is after several years of being in classes and being in prayer groups, is I started to have the realization that this whole, like, I want to get somebody in my life to make me feel something. And you all know this, right? It's like whenever you try to get something, a good practitioner will always say, and when you have that, what will you have then? And you're like, oh, then I'll feel loved. And they're like, let's talk about feeling loved. The love is a quality of God, and you already are it. So just that technology, which, you know, that is deep, right? It's like, you know, the body is in pain. I want wholeness. Well, wholeness is already who I am. Let me anchor into the wholeness I already am. And that is true for me right now. The place where I'm most challenged is I want the world to be different. I want the world to be different. I want the brutality and the violence and the disenfranchisement and the pain and the suffering and the war. I want it to be different. And where I'm having to do my work is I need to be the peace. I need to see what's possible. And yes, I may be active in doing things in the world, but I've got to do them from the place of what is it I really want and desire? What wholeness do I want to claim? And then I'll take it into action. But anyway, the good news is, as Reverend Dr. Craig said, prayer does work. So finally, this group prayed and prayed and prayed. And then by 20 years ago this month, I went on a little spiritual retreat up to Big Sur. And you know who I met. The big fella. We love it. Oh, yes, yes. Woo. And then 3 years later, look what happened. We have a wedding picture to celebrate. Look at this. Oh, come on. Come on. So this is Paul and Liz, and their little girl Britta was 7 by this point. And that's Janice Evans, and that beautiful brunette with the, look at that waistline. Good Lord, she looks happy. And then there's the big fella, Bill Sneed, practitioner extraordinaire and wonderful leader here at New Vision. And that's Reverend Jennifer Hadley, who Karen knows is a great teacher of the Course in Miracles. So this is our little prayer crew, and this is from our wedding. So such a happy and beautiful place to celebrate that. You know how it is when you know it for a friend? Like, you totally know that your friend is going to get the job or the position that is going to be perfect for her. And you know that so-and-so is going to work it out with their kids. Like, you know how you know it for a friend? that kind of feeling was what we had for each other. So then, where the other wonderful story that I want to tell you is what happens next. So the wedding was wonderful, but what happens next all those years? So for all those years, when we prayed for my friend Paul, we prayed for his acting career. So Paul Racy grew up as a coda, a child of deaf adults. So his very first language was American Sign Language. And he began his acting and his music career doing music for audiences that included deaf and hearing. He did a lot of work in deaf theater. And, that's been part of his journey. But he's an actor. And we would pray and pray and pray and pray for his acting career. And it was one of these things where we could see Paul's creativity and his uniqueness and his strengths and his skills. And on the outside, he was, getting gigs as an interpreter, and a little bit here and a little bit there. He had a couple of funny lines in a commercial. He got 3 lines in a Parks and Recreation. He played a quirky zookeeper, little things here and there. And then in 2018, 2019, Liz, his wife, who's an agent, so she's always looking for parts for Paul. She saw in the breakdowns a movie's coming out called Sound of Metal, which is the story of a rock and roll drummer who loses his hearing and ends up going, and he's a recovering addict. He goes to a recovery center, and he has a deaf recovery coach called Joe. So Liz, as an agent, sees this part written for a veteran who's deaf, who's in recovery, and all she can think of is this is written for Paul. He's a Vietnam vet. He struggled with his own addictions. He understands he's in deaf culture. And she had to fight like heck to get the casting directors to take Paul's, to watch Paul's audition, because they wanted a name. They wanted Robert Duvall or Forrest Whitaker, when you see them, who here, has anybody seen the movie? Sound of Metal? Okay, a couple of people. So I won't, it's great, isn't it? Yeah, great movie. No spoilers, but I'll give you a little bit of the background. So you kind of know where this is going, right? Liz gets the casting director to watch Paul, and Paul gets offered the part. And he almost didn't do the movie because the budget was so low they could barely pay him. But he decided to do it. They perked up his per diem, and he makes this movie. And then, what happens with actors is you make the movie, and then, you truly turn it over to God, because it goes into editing, and are they going to distribute it, and how's it going to happen? And it turns out Amazon picks up the movie, and it gets distributed, and it comes out in 2020, pandemic year, which is, people are watching movies in the theaters, but Amazon has it, and it comes out, and the movie starts to get a lot of acclaim because it's a beautiful movie. And Riz Ahmed plays the guy, the lead character, Reuben, and it's just so well done. It's really about his journey of, talk about having to claim your wholeness. He's a musician who loses his hearing. So it's just a beautiful journey that he goes through. And there's buzz. Toronto Film Festival, they love the movie, and there's buzz. And we in the prayer group could have this feeling. Something's going to happen for Paul with this movie. And it turns out he was there's energy for him for Best Supporting Actor. So he gets a little Critics Award over here. He gets nominated over here. He wins the Independent Spirit Award. And then last March, Bill and I are out on the way to the gym, and I'm watching the Academy Award nominations show and screaming in the parking lot of the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning because Paul Racy got nominated for an Academy Award for Sound of Metal. Yes! So that thing they say, it's an honor to be nominated? It's an honor to be nominated. Paul is a 73-year-old journeyman character actor whose biggest credit to date was 3 lines in Parks and Recreation. It just doesn't happen. So end of the story, he did not win the Academy Award, but he did get nominated. And it's been quite a journey. And Paul's always loved Goldsmith. He's always loved Joel Goldsmith. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to pray all those years knowing that your friend's good was not far off. But there's something kind of wonderful about having it come through in a way you could not have expected, couldn't have expected this, that a part so perfect and a situation so unique would happen. And then there's the best part. So we're about to show you a little clip from the movie. It's about 90 seconds, where Paul, the recovery coach Joe, is talking with Reuben. And Reuben's been on a journey about, what is he going to do? And there's been some disappointments and some betrayals between the two of them. And Joe has been coaching Reuben, has been saying, you need to find some quiet. You need to, connect with yourself. And so this is just 90 seconds of their time together.
I wonder, all these mornings you've been sitting in my study, sitting. Have you had any moments of stillness? Because you're right, Reuben. The world does keep moving. It can be a damn cruel place. But for me, those moments of stillness, that place, that's the kingdom of God. And that place will never abandon you. But I see you've made your choice, right?
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope that it brings you happiness, Reuben.
Oh, so isn't it just, ooh. So the part that gets me is that Paul Racy could have had his big breakthrough as a, quirky alien vampire, or he could have been kind of a creepy supervillain. Those are definitely the roles he could have played. But his big breakthrough, his Oscar clip, is where he is talking about moments of stillness that never abandon you, that is the kingdom of God. How great is that? The medicine that he gets to put out into the world is about there is something within us that is whole, something within us that is greater than our problems, that will never abandon us. So, and what's interesting too is Bill and I were just out there last night. We were in Burbank, and that's why I glammed a bit here. We walked the racy red carpet in their backyard, and we drove back, and we drove up this morning, and we celebrated Paul. But you know what? It's an interesting thing. When you get answered prayer and something wonderful's happening, then you have new challenges. So Paul, it's not like all the other challenges go away. That's really why the question is, I think this is the next question, are we going to God to escape or cope or get something, or are we going to yield, surrender, and realize something wonderful? Because, you get something, and then different problems arise. You think about in your life and in our life of our community. So how wonderful we get to stay in this beautiful campus. And now, tear out the fence because, boy, we're going to stay here. You got something new to do. It's the same in our lives. When we have a desire, the place where something truly wonderful beyond what we could imagine happens is when we yield to the good of God that is beyond what we could think of, where there is no God and, where love is love and we allow it to take the form it needs to take, where Paul's creative expression, you could not have planned that his Oscar clip that will live forever is about the moments of stillness that never leave us. So that is my call for each and every one of us. What is the dominant desire of our heart where we are in prayer? Have us be in a place of desiring the wonderful and yielding, surrendering, revealing the wholeness and allowing it to be in concert with the divine so that something wonderful happens in ways we can imagine and in ways we could not. So let's please join me in prayer, and we will anchor this in prayer. So how sweet it is for us to surrender and yield to the wholeness, to yield to the grace, to feel those moments of stillness, that which never abandons us because it is greater than any circumstance. I welcome, yield, surrender, and say yes, recognizing that God, Spirit, life is whole, creative, abundant, peace-filled, powerful, and free. And that infinite presence reveals itself as me, Karen, and as every beautiful being connected to the New Vision Center. We include in this prayer our families and brothers and sisters and beings in our own communities and beyond. We include all beings in this beautiful world, all beings, all peoples. We have an open heart in this prayer. And what I claim and know is that each is on a path of unfoldment, co-creating with the divine in a lawful, loving universe, so that the wonderful that occurs is beyond human carnal imagination, and that the wonderful that is already here, and we bring it forward. It is a now expression, a now moment, a now life. It is wonderful. It is expressed in and through each of us. And I'll invite in this moment the licensed practitioners and ministers of the science of mind to rise and stand with me, to claim that this now moment of something wonderful that is in this prayer, that this is held for the New Vision Center to deepen in our mission, to welcome those that are coming and are new, and to be a blessing to our community and beyond. Something wonderful is happening. We give thanks for this. We are grateful. We know that the law says yes, and with grateful hearts, I invite all to join as we say, and so it is.